Steppenwolf Theater presents Windfall. This is the world premiere from Terrell Alvin McCraney, the Oscar award-winning writer of Moonlight. In Windfall, a Chicago father loses his child in an altercation with police and then is visited by three shady people who advise him take the city's cash settlement, move away, and forget it ever happened. As Steppenwolf describes it, this is an examination of how institutional power and cold hard cash are used to shape how we deal with grief and trauma. Performances of Windfall begin April 9th. Be one of the first to witness this world premiere production and get your tickets today at steppenwolf.org. I don't know about y'all, but I could do with a little rewind, a little look back, a little nostalgia right about now. And I can always go for some quality time with beautiful art. So it's a good thing the Other Art Fair is back in Chicago, April 9th through the 12th. This year's theme is Nostalgia Core. So you can find a curated selection of interactive artist-led projects that celebrate those memories that make us, a little misty-eyed. Support 115 plus independent artists and meet them in person at Artifact events in Ravenswood. Tickets start at just $20. Book them now at theotherartfair.com. Today on CityCast Chicago, will the city enact mandatory rental inspections? Plus, the Fighting Illini are back in the Final Four for the first time in 20 years, and y'all have got some thoughts about AI. It's Tuesday, March 31st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I've got executive producer Simone Alisea in the building with me. Simone, how you feeling? How was your weekend?
I'm all right. It was pretty good. Met some gamers at C2E2 this weekend, which was great. How about you?
Nice. I got outside a little bit. I took some naps. I watched a little bit of March Madness. I saw some friends. So overall, pretty balanced weekend. Honestly, I do feel rested coming into this week, which I can't often say. So I feel like it was a productive and successful weekend. Simone, in our time on this podcast, we have covered plenty of investigations into the city's patchwork system of rental protections. And earlier this month, it looks like City Council passed an ordinance to try and beef up those protections.
Yeah, so they passed something called the Healthy Homes Ordinance. And what this ordinance does is it creates a working group to look into specifically two things. One, to try to create a system of proactive inspections of rental housing, and two, creating a public registry of all apartment complex owners. I'm going to start with the second one first, because that's the one that most people are generally agreed on is kind of a good idea. Advocates have been pushing for this for a long time. And actually, I feel like I started to see it get a lot of momentum around the organizing around the Obama Center and some of the community benefits agreement fight around that. Around there in South Shore and in Woodlawn, there were a lot of questions as to who was sort of buying up housing. As we've seen more, kind of private equity get into Chicago's housing market. I think people are asking more and more who is actually their landlord. And, we've talked to reporters at BEZ and stuff like that who have sort of gone through just how difficult the process can be if you're
one
building.
One LLC leads you to another LLC leads you to another. And by the time you're done, you necessarily haven't found out who owns your building, who manages your building.
Right, exactly. And so the public registry is something that I think like the Department of Buildings is like, yeah, we could get on board with that. We just have to kind of talk through the details of how that would work. The inspections are more of a sticking point.
Yes.
So right now, the way building inspections work in Chicago is, like a lot of things in this city, it is sort of in response to complaints. Renters or whomever calls 311 and says, there's something wrong with my building. I think the building is not meeting code. Then maybe, hopefully, in response to that 311 complaint, the city sends an inspector. The inspector, may cite the building owner, may issue a fine, and says you have to come up with a plan for how you're going to fix it. But the problem, there's sort of a few problems, as you can.
You got a few dozen inspectors and tens of thousands of complaints.
Yeah. So first of all, just the volume. There's a huge backlog of complaints. On top of that, because it is sort of complaint based, there isn't necessarily a super good system of follow-up. So even if a building owner is fined, there isn't necessarily follow-up to be like, okay, well, did you say what you were going to do? Did you fix the problem, or did you do what what needed to happen in order to make this go away? And the enforcement mechanism is sort of so jammed that you have some building owners who have dozens of code violations stacking over the course of years, and then some, we don't find out until something really, really, really bad happens. So a lot of this came out in 2021. The Chicago Tribune and Illinois Answers Project did a joint investigation specifically around fires, where there were a ton of buildings in Chicago that had been repeatedly cited for issues that are fire hazards: broken doors, stairs, things like that, in addition to overcrowding, and other things that make, when fires do break out, it makes them more deadly, right? And that some of these buildings had racked up a bunch of violations. So the city knew that these buildings were breaking the law, were code violators, and yet there wasn't really nothing happened. There was nothing that sort of forced any of these owners to actually materially improve the conditions of that building, let alone, remove any kind of ownership or something like that.
Yeah. And then in a situation where a building, like you said, has been cited, has been fined, and even if the city starts to take legal action, I think about the apartment complex in South Shore that was raided by the Department of Homeland Security last year, right? Prior to that violent raid going down, in which people had their doors kicked in, that building had been cited, months and months prior to that raid. But ultimately what ended up happening is people were displaced. Right. They had to be evicted. And so even in cases where people were trying to fight back, trying to maybe withhold rent, trying to go to the city to get an inspector to come through, to get someone to force changes in the building, ultimately the people who paid the most were the folks who lived there, and nothing was done.
Right. The remedy to right, which again, like, kind of makes sense on its face. The building is uninhabitable. You cannot live there. So the remedy is, you can't live in the building. You get kicked out, which, there's there's a logic to it. But fundamentally, if you're that person who no longer has a place to live, that doesn't make much sense. And so the question is would a program of mandatory proactive inspections have, either caught the problems earlier, or at least induced consequences before getting to the point of, this is an uninhabitable building that we have to kick you out of now?
And one of the things advocates push for is, in this system we currently have, where the renters have to reach out, have to call 311. A lot of people are scared, right? This system is largely set up to protect the landlord. So people are afraid of retaliation. And so if you have proactive inspections, you have a system in which these problems can be found without putting the tenants in the line of fire for retaliation, for being kicked out. The concerns here, though, is based on how the system currently works, is we don't have enough inspectors currently on the books, and expanding this for a sort of sustainable, long-term proactive system is going to run up against the budget fights we've seen year in and year out. And so who's going to have the political will to design this system, which the hope is this working group comes to some recommendations, but also then pay for and enforce that system?
Some of the supporters of this ordinance and supporters of, there was a version of this in 2022 that would have, as opposed to creating the working group, which this working group is going to study for 6 months, is going to solicit public feedback, would have kind of gone a little farther to actually create the system. Looks at models in LA and Minneapolis, where they do have a system of proactive building inspection, whereby it kind of like restaurant inspections, right? Whereby, investigators are coming around at given intervals, and that, like, at any point your building could be inspected. And so you got to have it in good condition, because who knows when you're going to get cited or fined or whatever. And then also, again, there's built up follow-up into that system as well, theoretically. It's interesting because then, some people who are kind of looking for other ways to do this point at Denver. Denver has a system whereby buildings can contract with sort of approved third-party private investigators. So it's not necessarily the city hiring a bunch of building inspectors as part of the buildings department, but there are certain vendors that are approved by the city that building owners can work with. That's sort of another potential way to go. I think the other thing that they run into, another big reason that there's been a lot of opposition and resistance to this, is landlords say that, they have concerns about, for individual inspections, who's incurring the cost of that inspection. And they say that it's going to raise their costs, which they're then going to raise, they're going to pass on to renters, right? I think for those of us who rent, I think the question is like, well, your building should be in good shape. Why are you worried about getting inspected if your building's in good shape? And so I think I will be curious to see, if they manage to design some kind of proactive system, what in the end, kind of which direction they go in and what it'll look like.
I think a lot of us have had this experience where you're walking around Chicago and you see this really amazing building. Maybe it's a beautiful old church or a random castle in the middle of a neighborhood or tower you've only ever seen in skyline pics, and you think to yourself, I wonder what the story is there. Instead of just walking on by, go ahead and book a walking tour with the Chicago Architecture Center. Their tours are rated as some of the best in Chicago, and the Architecture Center offers more than 70 docent-led walking tours exploring downtown, different neighborhoods, even cemeteries around the city. You could explore historic Austin or learn more about Chicago women in architecture, or finally learn how to get around the Pedway. I was just down there myself. All while Chicago storytellers and experts tell you the stories behind the buildings and the people who built them. Walking tours start at just $15, y'all. Visit architecture.org/tours or call 312-922-TOUR or head to the center's riverfront location at 111 East Wacker. With all this up and down weather we've been having, how are your windows holding up? If you're worried about leaks during all the rain, or you're having trouble opening your windows on those few sunny days, or I don't know, maybe the wind is getting in and all your heat is getting out, it might be time to get you some new ones. Luckily, Window Nation has a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. You can save 50% on all the windows for your crib, plus get them with 0% interest financing for 5 years. Window Nation measures 3 times to ensure a perfect fit, and crews are in and out within a day. Get the energy-efficient windows you need to protect your home in the style that you want. But don't wait, because the sale ends soon. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com. Simone, over the weekend, the city and broader Chicagoland was jumping as U of I was in the Elite Eight for the first time in a couple of years. They were last there in 2024, and they faced off against a Cinderella story this year in Iowa. And at the end of the weekend, Simone, they are headed to the Final Four for the first time in 21 years after beating Iowa 71-59. Did any of this buzz make its way into your bubble over the weekend?
Not even a little bit, but I'm happy for all the college basketball fans out there, all of my U of I friends. I think we all have plenty in this
100%.
City. Glad for...
Shout out Sydney, Madden.
Yeah, glad for you all. This is great. And I love it. So Jacoby, tell me about this team. Why am I watching this right now? What's good? What's going on?
All right. So in this game, they was led in points by their freshman, Keaton Wagler, who over the year has gone from a very good player, likely to be a one and done, meaning he, 1 year in college and then heads off to the pros. But he has probably played himself over this year into a lottery pick, top 10 pick. He had 25 points in this game, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. This team is extremely tall. They've got 2 7-footers. Another freshman in Mirkovic, I think it's like 6'9", 6'10". He had 12 boards in this game. We dominated them in total rebounds. We outscored them in the paint, I think like 40-12.
That's a big ratio. That's a lot. Yeah. Those are big numbers, Jacoby.
Yeah. And I mean, thinking like Mirkovic, this man is throwing alley-oops to other 7-footers while leading the team in rebounds. You've got some good veteran leadership on the team. Stojakovic is the son of former NBA All-Star Pedro Stojakovic, and he has 17 points, strapping it all game. And so beat the hell out of a couple of teams early in the tournament, and now are facing up against a team they have history with in UConn, a team that's been in the Final Four like 3 of the last 4 seasons or something like that, has won 2 championships recently. Coach Dan Hurley is a madman. And
is it wild that I didn't realize their men's team was also good?
UConn?
Yeah.
No,
because I'm very familiar with the women's program and how well the women's team is done.
And the women's team is currently undefeated.
Yeah.
Still putting belt to ass. And so, no, but they have had a lot of recent success. Again, they have won UConn has won championships in 2023 and 2024, and they just pulled off a 35-foot damn near buzzer beater against Duke and their road to the Final Four. And back in 2024, when this U of I team was in the Elite Eight, they lost to UConn by 25, including at one point in the game, UConn scored 30 points in a row. And so it's a lot of history here, but the team they faced in 2024, and hell, the team they faced earlier this year, the day after Thanksgiving in Madison Square Garden, it's not the same U of I team. And so this game on Saturday is a big deal, Simone. Like this school has never won a championship. Their last Final Four appearance, I was in the 8th grade, and that team in 2005, one of the greatest college basketball teams of all time, probably the greatest U of I team of all time. I mean, they was the number one for like 15 weeks. Everybody in my 8th grade knew who Luther Hare was, and D Brown and Darren Williams. It was like they had the whole city on lock.
Okay, so
20 years ago.
Jacoby, give me the spread. What are the chances? Where do you think they go?
Ooh, that's a damn good question. Because on the other side of that, I think it's 2 number 1 seeds, Arizona versus Michigan. So this would be one of the most difficult championships. But they are 3 seed. They've been here. This is their 6th tournament in a row. I'm going to give them a 40% chance of winning this weekend.
Okay,
would be a close game. They gotta shoot the 3-ball better.
Okay.
So I give them a 40% chance to get to the title game. And if they get to the title game, it's 50-50. It's 50-50. It's just for all the marbles. And so I would not sleep on this U of I team.
Well, I'm sure Chicago is going to turn up and turn out this weekend. I was reading that in Champaign on Saturday, there were new liquor laws in place that after 3 p.m. Saturday, bars and restaurants couldn't serve alcohol in glass containers. Retailers were banned from selling packaged alcohol or to-go cocktails after 6 p.m. And the restrictions remained in place until early Sunday. So I think expecting a lot of partying. There are plenty of. The thing is, I have a feeling that every sports bar is going to be an Illini bar this weekend. But there are certainly some that are known for it. I think Brickhouse Tavern in Lakeview, Joe's on Weed Street in Lincoln Park, Weathermark Tavern in South Loop. But if you're, I would say if you're looking to watch it, probably any bar will do, to be honest. They're all anyone with a TV is probably going to have this game on, I suspect.
I think the year after celebrating such a phenomenal 20-year anniversary in that 2005 team, this would be an all-time sports story if they're able to pull this off and get their first ever championship. I did not expect them to make a Final Four run, but their ability to wake the city up and bring the city together. A lot of people, like we say, who moved to Chicago, who went to U of I. We all got friends who went to U of I. They all come out the woodworks out of nowhere, and then you realize this is one of the cities.
Especially your UIC friends, like your UIC friends who then claim, who normally they're like, no, I'm at UIC. I didn't go to U of I. I was in Chicago, but then they like claim the university system.
How quickly it becomes we all of a sudden, right? You realize how much of a uniting team this program is in a city that has such illustrious professional teams. I think that is so cool. And again, to have them beating Iowa in a city that also has a lot of Iowa
Well, just all the Big Ten, right?
connections, right?
We're all here.
Puts the little cherry on top. And so you somehow pull off a win against one of the recent juggernauts. I think it stamped this team as legends, and I think it would feed into the city in a very positive way in the weeks and months to come. Before we get out of here, Simone, our listeners have really been reaching back out to us. I've been saying, if you got some ideas, you got thoughts, you got comments, let us hear them. 773-780-0246. You can send us a text or a voicemail, and it sounds our AI conversations over the last few weeks has inspired people to finally reach out to us. What they got to say?
Yeah, so if you remember last week on Thursday in particular, we did kind of a double truck story about the AI school that is coming to the Loop in the fall. This is a school where the instruction, well, there are no teachers, right? It's not teacher-led. The idea of the school is the guides guide students through AI created curriculums and computer learning in addition to some workshops that are part of the curriculum as well. And then we had also talked about in that same episode, everyone saw those videos of the delivery robots that crashed into bus shelters twice in a week. 2 different robots.
I have a video of it. I passed by a bus shelter I might have been on like 47th and King Drive or something. And it was completely glassed out. And I took my phone out, started recording. And I was like, did one of those robots come and attack you? Did they come attack the south side of the robots here too? And every time I see one, that's all I'm going to think about. If the glass is knocked out, I'm going to just assume one of them little Cocos came through or one of them serve robots came through and smashed it up.
And so we got a few voicemails about these stories. Let's start with one about the AI school in particular.
Hi, CityCast, Chicago. I love you. My name is Cece. I'm calling from Rogers Park. I just listened to the episode about all the robots, the teachers and the delivery drivers and the driverless cars. That was also after coming off a day of our educational support professionals are rallying downstate for unemployment insurance because they cannot afford their bills working in schools the entire year. And also just fighting for public education in general. And then just to see that the private sector is trying to move us into an obsolete industry. Like, imagine, I'm a special ed teacher, so can you imagine robots differentiating your kids' curriculum? I don't know. It's very insulting and disheartening, but thank you for covering it in this outrageous world. Yeah, thank you. Take care.
That's the part I really didn't get into last week, was the insulting nature of it. And I also know that educators aren't a monolith on how they feel about AI. I know a ton of educators right now who are like, this thing is here. It's in our classrooms. Our kids have access to it. We need to figure out how to incorporate it. In the same way they had to figure out cell phones and the internet and whiteboards and every other piece of technology that has threatened to revolutionize or change or absolutely transform the in-classroom experience, decade after decade. And so I know there are some who are like, we should be figuring this out. We should be working together. And there are some who are completely anti, who are not going to be using this in their class, who are sticklers about their students using it. But the idea of a school that completely removes the teacher in name, but the selling point being that AI is the person that designs and interacts with the students, who knows best how to prepare the student, is fundamentally such an insulting thesis. And again, my concern for this one school aside, the various ways school systems and school communities are figuring out how to adapt AI, it's it feels like such an isolating, concerning, like, prospect for teachers right now. They have no idea what the next couple of years is going to look like inside their classroom.
Well, I think this is true for a lot of us in a lot of our industries, right? Of sort of not knowing, we know the robots are coming, but how are they going to come for us exactly, right? And what is the way to do that? I also want to point to the legislation that Cece mentioned is currently being debated in Springfield. It's called the Unemployment Equity Act, which would allow like paraprofessionals, school bus drivers, custodians, so those educational support professionals, to collect unemployment benefits while school is not in session. They're arguing that, because they don't get a paycheck during those months, during the summer months when school is closed, but they can't currently access unemployment during those months. And so they're trying to lobby to get access to those benefits to help bridge the gap on their bills there. So just in case you wanted to learn more, you can look up that legislation. We also got another voicemail on worrying about AI as well.
Hey, CityCast, this is Viral from Rogers Park. I got some thoughts on AI and these robot delivery bots. I just got to say, we keep talking about, all the investment in AI and the jobs and that stuff. And all I'm thinking is there's so many things we could be doing right now that we could be investing private money and public money into that would make our city so much better. We don't need robot delivery bots on the roads, on the sidewalks. We need people to plow the sidewalks when it snows, right? We don't need to have construction jobs to build AI data centers. We can have construction jobs to replace all the lead pipes in the city, right? Like hiring enough people to power wash every CTA station on a regular basis and every CTA train car, right? Like, I feel like that would be a better intervention for our city. Hiring enough community violence intervention people, reopening mental health clinics. Like, there's just so many things that would be better uses of our time and our money instead of just more robots, more AI, more isolation, more, keeping everybody siloed. So that's my 2 cents.
I do think it's a testament to how much lawmakers are attracted to shiny things. Maybe simplistic as it sounds, I think these are the people we need to be overwhelming their phone lines and their email lines and complaining if these are the things you don't want to see on your city streets. As many questions as I have about the future of data centers in Illinois, the one thing we have seen that's leading to any type of speed check is local pressure, is people filling up those meetings and saying, we don't want this. Is it always successful? No. Right. The local lawmakers may still vote 8-1, but that type of pushback. And so some of these things right now are in pilot programs, whether it's the delivery robots or the forthcoming. I seen some Waymo vehicles last weekend.
Did you?
Like, yeah, they out here. They do.
Well, I think
like,
are they mapping? I think that's so right. That was, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago with the Waymo autonomous vehicles, but I think they're currently mapping the city with drivers in them. They're not autonomous yet, but it's sort of coming soon. Last voicemail we have just made me giggle.
Hey everyone, this is James. I live in Tri-Taylor, so I'm a little bit behind this week. I'm just catching up on Thursday's episode, and I just wanted to let you know that the students at the AI school are actually the ones monitoring the delivery robots, and they are in first grade, so that's why they aren't doing a good job, and the robots are running into these bus shelters because the people monitoring them are 6 years old.
The kids is drunk on apple juice. They got the kids mapping the Waymo cars too.
Probably right. For the record, that is not what is happening at the AI schools. As far as we know, there is no evidence to suggest that children are driving the delivery robots. Please do not clip this out of context. I always get so nervous about things like that. But the idea is very funny. I really like the idea of the kids on the computer, on the Xbox, just like, there's my Coco going.
I like the idea that every time I get one of those captchas wrong to enter into a website,
That you're teaching the robot wrong?
that I'm the reason the robot ran into the bus shelter.
It was you.
It was me.
It was you, because you couldn't recognize the stop sign, so they couldn't. You couldn't. Probably that's what the captions are going to show us. They're going to be like, which one is the bus shelter? Choose all the pictures that have the bus shelter in it.
Anyway, man, it has been a lot of me and you on this podcast lately. I hope people are enjoying it. I'm having a damn good time. I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alisea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, make sure you bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. There you are going to find a packed out events calendar. You can subscribe to our daily newsletter. And if you really love the work we're doing over here at CityCast Chicago, consider signing up to become a neighbor. You're going to get access to ad-free listening and access to neighbors only events for just $10 a month. That's membership.citycast.fm. Of course, we can't get out of here without some good news. Now, despite getting swept over the weekend by the Brewers, the Sox did have a little bright spot with new player Murakami homering in his first 3 games. They will be back in the land Thursday for a series against the Blue Jays. I know it's tough to start your schedule when the first 3 opponents you playing all started the season 3-0 when you started 0-3. But as is the life of a White Sox player and fan. But hey, it's still early season. The sun and the good weather ain't even got here, so we can't drop our heads just yet, y'all. We gonna be back bright and early tomorrow. I'm gonna talk to you then. Peace.